So what happens is, you guys, juicing is critical for toxic blood. Everybody has toxic, dehydrated, chronically dehydrated, toxic blood. They walk around with toxic blood. You see it in their eyes. You see it everywhere. Their blood is toxic. You can see it in their skin. You can see it in all kinds of different ways. They walk around chronically toxic. That's how they walk around. I've already told you guys. Okay, you got the pathogens, you got the metals, you got all that different stuff. But everybody's bodies are like crying to get rid of this stuff. Crying. Let me just ask you something. Have you seen anybody in their young age? Have you seen them later on in their older age? Is there somebody you knew 30 years ago? They kind of looked slim. They kind of looked kind of together. They kind of look kind of like healthy, and then you see them 30 years later, 20 years later, they're bloated. They're thicker. Their head for some reason grew where their head is twice the size of what it was when they were younger. Did you ever know how that works? Did you ever see that? Everybody's heads gets big. How does it get big? Their skull doesn't grow, but years later, their head is bigger than it was. And it's not even about weight. Their head got swollen. 30 years ago, their head was half their size. How did their head get twice the size? Do you guys know? You see them when they're 20. They've already stopped growing. You see them when they're 45 and their head is huge and their nose is big. Their nose grew twice its size. I don't get it. Is your nose still growing? Is your head still growing? No, your head stopped growing. Your nose stopped growing. That's from toxic blood. Everybody looks like a bloated tick later on. You pull a tick off a dog that's been on there way too long, and it's this big old bloated tick. It's the craziest thing. You look at somebody later on, years later, you look at them when they're in their 30s. Look, you can even look at politicians. Whatever. You see them, pictures of them when they were 30. You see pictures of them when they're 60. Like, what happened? Your head grew 3 times bigger. How did your head grow when you don't grow anymore? It's the same thing with some celebrities, right? You see some celebrities like when they're 20 years old, 25 years old. Then you see them years later and their heads are like twice the size. Like, what happened? From being toxic for too many years. Toxic for too many years. Toxic blood does some crazy ass shit in the body. That's what toxic blood does. It does some crazy ass shit in the body. That's what toxic blood does. I mean, it's really incredible how it works, right? But no, you don't need to cleanse. No, you don't need to cleanse. You guys just eat a balanced diet. Whatever you think is balanced. Let's do that. Let's trust everybody on what they think is balanced. It's not fat I'm talking about. Their heads don't explode because of fat. You need to know that that's part of it because the brain does gather fat. So there's too much fat in the brain, meaning additional fat. But it's not just about its swelling. They got so toxic that their head swelled up. It's swollen. Their head got so swollen that it enlarged. That's why the person's head is twice the size or a third size bigger or a quarter size bigger than it was back 20, 30 years ago, because the swelling became so chronic that the head had to make room for it. So the head had to expand, like the whole head expanded to make room for that swelling. That's from toxic blood. But you don't need to cleanse. No. I'm Dr. Schessenheimer. I'm Dr. Shin. I'm a chiropractor and I'm an MD. I'm a chiropractor, no, I'm an MD. You don't have to cleanse. 5 tips to make yourself healthy. Get my collagen powder. That will do it. Get my apple cider vinegar chewies. That will do it. Get my fruits and vegetables in a capsule. That will do it. But don't eat fruit. 5 top tips. As my head swells bigger and bigger, and I need another implant and another root canal. What happens is that we get toxic. We don't know what a balanced diet is. We don't know what's going on, but we just turn into a toxic mess as the decades go by. And that's what happens. But it's more than that. Your spinal fluid becomes toxic. You got no room for the spinal fluid anymore. The spinal fluid gets full of so many poisons and toxins, it slowly graduates into everything needs to make room. And that person's head is now so big compared to what it used to be 30 years ago. Their head is big now, but they stopped growing 30 years ago, but their head swelled up because of the spinal fluid too. It's not just lymph. Lymph is just this much of it. Spinal fluid's a big part of it. And then there's other stuff too. And blood is the really big part of it. Blood being toxic for so long that your blood vessels just start to swell. Everything expands. Even your skull starts to expand. And then it weakens. So then you're walking along and you're 60 years old. You're walking along, right? And you slip down. And then boom, you crack your head. The doctor's like, I don't know how that happened. You shouldn't have cracked your head open from that fall. So do we need a juice? No. No. I just sit here for fun. I'm just doing this for fun. I'm just sitting here, okay, spending my days and my hours trying to show you guys how to juice for no reason. For no good reason.